And we're live. Hey guys and girls, welcome to this Tuesday's Facebook Live. We are back. Birchy is back to 2023. Good to see everybody online. It's coming online. Just wait till a few of you pop online because I can't see. Yeah, I can see a few people joining online now, which is cool. Smash up the likes and we'll get into it. So, lots of cool things to talk about. A lot of things have been happening. It's been about 6 weeks since I've done a Facebook Live. Thanks a lot. Hey, Hassan. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Josh. Good to see you back. Thanks, mate. Um, Taking a few weeks off. Got a bit of a tan. Been at my holiday house. And yeah, ready for 2023. I never really stopped working. I was just trying to catch up on other stuff. So many things go on in my life on a day-to-day basis, and yeah, it was good to have a bit of time to relax and catch up on those things. So yeah, getting straight into tonight's discussions. There's one very big story out there at the moment, which is the cash rate has increased by 25 basis points. What does that mean? I'm sure a lot of people will be tuning in tonight, looking for some of those answers and what my thoughts are, what my take is on that. So, um, this one, I've got 12 different articles. I'm full of paper today and going to run through these. There's a lot of things for us to catch up on, a lot of things for me to share, a lot of things going on out there, which is really interesting. So, first one here as an article just talking about what has gone on today. The RBA interest rate hike live updates. The cash rate increases by 25 basis points to 3.35%. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, Birchy, going back a year ago, you said we're going to negative interest rates. You said that interest rates can't go up above, two interest rate hikes being 50 base point increases. I said that the system would not support more than 50 basis points, which it's not. I'm going to go through a lot of that data today and have a look and deep dive into that. So, what is my thoughts on the interest rate movements? Where are they going to go to moving forward? I've had a fair few people ask me that over the last couple of weeks, and my thought is very, very simple. The interest rates cannot be sustainable at this current rate. The amount of debt and liquidity that is out in the system just does not support 335 basis points at the central bank level. I will break down that with some more news articles and different sort of bits of information here shortly, but the system does not support this. My view, and looking at the interbank cash rate futures chart, which I don't think I have here, so that graph that I go from, I'm noticing the top end has gone under the 3.6%, which would mean that we only have one more rate hike if they were to go that far. I'm seeing a lot of indicators. Here's today's. I just printed this out before we hopped online. This is from the CNN Business, the Commie News Network, looking at the US bond rate. So this one here is really funny. So if we look at just either one, this is just yesterday and today, 4.52%. So if you lock your money away for 3 months, you'll get 4.5% return on it. You lock it away for 2 years, you get 4.3% on it. You lock it away for 5 years, you get 3.66%. You lock it away for 10 years, you get 3.5%. You lock it away for 30 years, you get 3.62%. Inflation is higher than all of these numbers. So whatever you look at the debt, it is all totally irrelevant. The most important part to look at this is, and I talked about this on last one at the end of last year, is that whenever these here, the longer you put the money in, the more higher of a return you should be expecting. If you put your money in for 3 months, you should be getting 3.5. If you put it in for 2 years, you're probably getting 3.6. It's flipped around, which is an inversion of the yield curve. So looking at all the sort of data out there, we're going to go into that. I did a podcast on this, I think last week I filmed, and I talked a lot about the whole world economy at the moment. So this one here is, someone sent this to me. I don't know who sent it to me the other day. Thank you very much for sending this over. It is just some numbers here to look at the shadow banking and looking at the amount of debts that are flowing around out there. So currently, we have the US. Do we have the US debt here, the $31 trillion? No, we don't have that here. Actually, yeah, we do. This article number 10 here. I'm going to get to this. This one here. Let's look at this one first, actually. This article here. This is where it's all at. Extraordinary. US debt. US could default on its debt as soon as June. Right. This here is really funny, right? Because when I said that when interest rates started going up in March or May 2022, I said that there would be a series of things that would occur. It's not that we would have our households go bankrupt. There's a lot of people that would. There would be businesses that go bankrupt. And there's lots of things that would go fundamentally wrong in the system. The most important thing is that we'd see our largest corporations go broke, and we would also see the countries around the world and their currencies go broke. And there's a very, very big thing that's looming at the moment, right? And that is that the US has $31 trillion worth of debt. And if you go back and believe in QAnon or Trump or any of the actors that are put there on the stage that people think are going to save them, you will see that when Trump went in, he said $20 trillion worth of debt. That's absurd. I'm going to get rid of the $20 trillion. It was all Obama's fault. We're going to put it back in the black. When he left the office, there was about $28 trillion worth of debt. So the debt went up by about 20%. And in the last 2 years or whatever it's been that we haven't seen his tweets for, we've now seen it hit the ceiling of $31 trillion. So something I saw, it was like a meme recently, and it was pretty funny. And it said, imagine being so bad at managing finances that you take 40% of everybody's income and you're still in $31 trillion worth of debt, right? Now let that sink in. If you're in the US, they're taking your money, right? You earn 100 grand, they take 30%, 40% of it, whatever they're taking. They're taking everybody's income. They're taking the GSTs, they're taking all the sales taxes, they're taking corporate taxes, everybody's money. They're taking 20, 30, 40% of their revenue. However, they take everybody's money and they're still $31 trillion in debt. Just put that aside. I read somewhere that 1 billion seconds would have meant that Jesus would be alive, I believe. So that would take you back like thousands of years to get a trillion seconds, right? 31 trillion, right? This is like, if a dollar was a second, the amount of time that it would take, a trillion is a lot. It's a very large unit of numbers. Your calculator cannot even handle it. So $31 trillion in debt. The question is who are they in the debt to? Second of all, how do they create that debt, which is back to the bonds, which are obviously blown up. And here we are with an expectation that the system can support a 335 basis point cash rate. It's impossible for it to stay at this level. So my view on this, and it's no financial advice, it's just my view, my thoughts and all that, is that we started the year at 310 basis points. I don't believe that we will see us entering into 2024 with an interest rate anywhere near 3.1% or 310 basis points. I believe it'll be much lower than that. Whatever comes this year is whatever comes. So looking at where is there to go? I believe somewhere around the end of financial year, which I talked about last year. I said that the system would implode if it goes past 50 basis points of increases, and the amount of funds that have to put in to plug up that system would be, you won't be able to imagine how big that is. So let's read this article here. Extraordinary. US could default on its debt as soon as June. The US is facing a giant problem of its own making, with experts calling it an unimaginable disaster in the world economy. A fresh warning has been sounded that the US government could soon default on its debt as soon as June, when the extraordinary measures brought to stave off the crisis are no longer enough to manage a 30 trillion bill that is ticking upwards, right? So the US now has to roll over 30 30 trillion. I can't say it with a straight face. I can't say it without laughing. That they have to roll over $30 trillion worth of debt, right? 30 trillion worth of debt. It says here the US will reach a debt limit which is currently 31.4 trillion, right? 0.4 trillion, who cares about 0.4? That's just like $400 billion. Just easy come, easy go. When they go to take out more debt, they actually have to take out the debt to cover the interest as well. So these bonds that they take out, they have to factor in the interest. So the amount of debt that they're going to have to take out to repay the old amount of debt with a cash rate now, let's say, what is it here? Where's the cash rate, the bond rate? At 400 basis points at 4%. The cash rate that this $31 trillion worth of debt was at beforehand was probably 50 basis points, and now they're rolling it over at 400 basis points. That's 8 times higher the amount of cost. So if you think you've got to issue in your household budget, imagine the budget of the greatest economy in the world, allegedly. They call it the greatest economy, but for those of you that are tuning in, I just said beforehand, $31.4 trillion, right? $31.4 trillion worth of debt, and they take 30% of your income anyway, and every business out there. How do they get into this debt? Because they're shit money managers, right? And it's a big, fat scam. Anyway, I digress. There's significant uncertainty in the debt forecast. The Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wrote to the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy earlier this week. The US Treasury would pursue its extraordinary measures, which will primarily include changes to retirement funds and civil servants. Oh, changes to retirement funds. There goes your super, everybody. Anyway, lucky we're not in America. We've only got $1 trillion in the last 2 years worth of debt. Don't worry. It'll all be higher soon. It's all right. In fact, the US could default as early as June, Janet Yellen wrote. How quickly the money ran out would depend on how much the government collected in taxes this year. Newly introduced policies, such as student loan forgiveness program, could further shorten the window, but potential default could cause an economic crisis. So imagine that. We see an economic default, and then we see a crisis, right? We see a massive recession. What happens in a recession? What have they done every single time there's a recession? They lower cash rates, they stimulate, they put injections in. But the difference this time is that we have no interest rates. We have inflation that's soaring through the roof already. Right? We're having inflation through the roof. We've got a cash rate which is still half of what the inflation level was. They can't stop it. They can't get the genie back in the bag. So I'm excited, right? When we see this recession that's going to come, it's imminent recession, and I believe it's greater than a recession. It's a depression, but let's not call it that because people may not be excited by that. The debt is owed to people around the world and institutions around the world, 1/3 of whom is outside of the US. They include any buyer of government-issued securities like bonds, as well as the US Federal Reserve and other central banks, with Japan, China, and UK at top of the list. With the US government comes close to the ceiling, numbers can be crunched to buy a little more time, such as the extraordinary measures Dr. Yellen said would be introduced in the coming weeks. So they're putting extraordinary measures in to buy a couple of weeks worth of time before we see the whole economic system go bust. But yet they're still pushing up the rates. I don't know, right? My next articles that I've got, they're just stats on recession. So let's have a look at some of the recession. So US, 31 trillion worth of debt. Trump said he was going to fix it. 4 years, he put it up from 20 trillion to like 28 trillion or 27 trillion. Bozo Biden or whatever he is, he's forgotten what the Treasury budget is, but it's up to $31.5 trillion. Doesn't even seem like that much, right? It doesn't even seem like that much because they've just printed so much debt. But let's go and have a look at a few other things. So say that they're putting special measures in place. However, there's talks of a war, there's things being shot down, there's lots of weird things that are happening in the world. So just keep an eye out, because last time we saw a calamity like this, which was September 2019, within 3 months there was the biggest warfare on humans that we could have ever imagined. Anyway, this one here, one of my investors sent this one. Was it this one through? This was attached to, there was two of these, so hopefully I can find the other one here quite easily in my little pile. Let's have a look at this. So the numbers from, here we go. I'll just read through this. The retail sales measure in the change of total value of inflation-adjusted sales at a retail level, indicator of consumer spending. Here we are, Australian resale sales. Forecast was 0.3 in the red. They were expecting it to be 0.3 in the red, and it was actually 3.9%. So that's like 30 times higher than what you would have thought of beforehand as a loss. The last time there was another chart to accompany this, guys. There's another chart. It's missing from my slide deck tonight. I'm going to put it here just in case it is in there. But the indicators that are out there pushing on a recession, we have smashed straight through them. We have smashed straight through all the indicators that would indicate that we are heading into a recession. We are well into a recession. It's not being reported. How is pushing up interest rates? Retail spending's down, consumer spending's down, businesses are cutting back on staff. My next article here is about job cuts, right? There's a job cut article here, which says, where are we here? I'm just pulling them out. I'm excited. IBM cuts 3,900 jobs, blaming its exit from Russia and rising inflation, right? Everyone's cutting jobs. Everyone's cutting back. But apparently, we can't control inflation still. So, what is going to happen to those interest rates? This here is the just a chart talking about the cost of the debt, right? The cost of the debt in the US. So the federal government current expenditures, interest payments. This is the interest payment on the US debt, right? We can see where are we at here, 1950. It was flat, right? It was flat. And something happened here, and I would imagine, without even turning this around, where it just started taking off, was when the Federal Reserve came in, and they changed in 1971 with the US dollar. And that's when we started seeing our first batch of inflation. Then we had 1975, and notice how the interest bill just keeps going up because they just keep printing debt and debt and debt. The grey lines are the recessions. It doesn't have the indication there, but those grey lines in between are the recessions. So if we look at 1990, we'll see there was one there, .com, GFC, and Corona. So they're the recessions that we've experienced over most of our lifetimes. Those of you that are watching, could have been many further back here, but the most memorable ones, 1992, 2000 .com, 2008 GFC, and 2020 with the little scam, right? But you see how quick that recession blipped off the radar, right? And they did that with monetary policy. So if we have a look here, the interest bill went down. Each time you see a recession, the interest bill's gone down, right? And this one's really, really important, right? So 2000, interest bill went down, got a recession, interest bill went down because they're tightening the market, right? They're tightening the market. So here we are, interest bill's gone down. They tried to take the liquidity out of the market in 2019. The market crashed 2019 to the start of 2020. We've got the recession in February, March 2020. They printed straight through it. But if you noticed, this is getting sharper and sharper and sharper and sharper and sharper. And now we're at a hockey stick level. That's the amount of interest. So each year, the US is paying $853 billion per year. $853 billion in interest on their $31 trillion worth of interest. So when we look at that, that's insane, right? The whole country of Australia each year is the debt interest bill. It's just the interest bill in the US. And that's meant to be base currency. meant to be base currency. What happens now when they roll over this debt and they're not paying 50 basis points, they're paying 4%, 400 basis points? What's going to happen to the interest bills? They're going to go up to $2 trillion a year. $2 trillion a year in interest. It's amazing. Dave just said here the chart was where the retail sales, exactly, right? Christmas is meant to be this Christmas spending month, right? This is straight from the stats, right? I didn't make these numbers up. They forecasted a slight decline. The actual decline was like 10 times higher than that, 15 times higher. That is an alarm bell going, we're in a fucking recession. If you've ever seen one, that is it. Going to read this one again. So we're going to go back to the 65 trillion in hidden debt. And this is just by US, non-US banks, and this is in the US. So this one here goes, $65 trillion in unrecorded dollar debt circulates across the global financial system in non-US banks and shadow banks. They can create $1 quadrillion in debt, derivative obligations traded on that debt, and call it CUDOs, collateralized, unrecorded dollar debt obligations. Chop it up and resell it to different funds and then pitch it to pension funds for a commission. Welcome to your superannuation. That's how you're going to retire. They just make Ponzi schemes inside of Ponzi schemes. And people buy this shit every day of the week. So here we go. Unrecorded bank debt is growing. You can just see the balance sheets there, right? There's literally quadrillions of dollars, right, of derivatives that are out there. These are off balance sheet transactions, which, you know, you start tinkering too much with the interest rates, we're going to see all those things blow up. Derivatives markets will blow up this year. I'm not trying to be negative, right? I'm actually very optimistic. I'm very excited by this because, as I was saying, when you saw the GFC, when you go back, all those grey lines that are here were recessions. The bigger the fatter the grey line, the longer the recession took. The skinnier the grey line, the shorter the recession was. You have to zoom into the 2020. It was just a blip. How do they get through it? They just print more money, print more money, print more money. Interest rates became cheaper from 1992, in 2000, 2008, 2020, right? They became cheaper. And what is going to happen when we see this? The writing is on the wall. I do not care what happens. If you are scared about an interest rate, yes, it's important to manage your cash flow on a daily, weekly, monthly sort of basis. I'm not trying to be a dick about it. Naturally, my interest rates have gone up astronomical because I have lots of debt as well. But I still think the benefits of them rising far exceeds the fact that they would be going down. So, yeah, very excited by it. There's a lot of opportunity around this. Here's an article which I find funny because whenever I see a certain number out there, it's like they hide things in plain sight. This is from Sydney Morning Herald. RBA is tipped to cut rates this year in a world-leading move. Oh, didn't all the other articles say they were going up? You'd have bipolar if you read every article out there and got real serious about it because you wouldn't know, are they going up? Are they going down? What's going on? Let's read this. Living cost pressures will be so hard on consumers that the Reserve Bank of Australia could be the first major central bank to start cutting rates, yet businesses are still on course for an earnings recession, says Morningstar's investment chief. Matt Watcher, Chief Investment Officer of Morningstar for Asia Pacific, predicts the RBA will raise the cash rate once or twice more in response to hot inflation before it reaches their peak, or they're just pushing it all the way up. So when we do announce that we're in a recession, they can go, well, look, we've taken special measures, we've stopped inflation because everyone's going broke, and they haven't really stopped inflation because everything just keeps going up and up and up. I haven't driven a car for like a month or so. I've been walking most places, and I filled up one of my cars this morning. I was filling it up, and I was on the phone, and I'm always on the phone, right? You've never seen the car blow up. Just as a bit of FYI, if you're at the service station and it says you can't be on your phone, never seen it blow up before. Um, Never say never, got to touch wood. But I was filling it up. I looked at the petrol barrels and I was like, hang on a second, the petrol seems very expensive. Last time I looked, I was like, oh, it's coming down a little bit. It was $2.25. I was talking in cents, right? $2.25 or $2.30 or something like that. I'm like, that's interesting, right? Everything's going back up on that same trajectory. Nothing's becoming cheaper. They've put up interest rates, of course, a recession, but nothing seems to change, right? We're at a really bad point here where inflation just keeps going up. It's not going to stop. Cocoa Pops, $10 a pack. Bottles of water, $5, right, for a 600ml bottle, like such, whatever. Getting a bit thirsty. Went into a house today and it had cats, and I'm allergic to hairy animals like that. But interesting time. Data last week showed that inflation shot to a near 33-year high, they say. It's like their little numerology when they leave little notes in their articles. It's like little cryptic messages they put in there. 33-year high, not 29 years, not 31 years, not 34 years, 33-year high in the December quarter. More worryingly, the RBA's preferred measure of underlying inflation came in well above most recent records and forecasts. Bonds markets are fully priced for a ninth straight rate rise to 3.35% at the RBA policy meeting on February 7th. Well, there we go. And imply at least one more rate increase to a peak of 3.8%. Well, one more on top would bring it to 3.6, and that's the top where it's come down. So if you look at those charts, I'll bring it out next week. I'll throw it in the Birch feed. But that tail end that I've talked about is now becoming progressively further and further along, shorter and shorter. So it used to just keep going up, and it's coming back. And I think that as we see the middle of this year, we will start to see rate cuts. So most people there going, oh, rates are going higher, rates are going higher. Just think about it. If you're feeling a bit of pressure, if the next person's feeling a bit of pressure, everybody's feeling a pressure. The higher it goes up, everyone's going to feel the pressure. It cannot mathematically, I didn't get the greatest grades at school, but, one thing is that I've got a calculator. I can, conduct very well with math, and it's mathematically impossible for this to occur or be sustainable. Central Bank has already lifted the cash rate 3 percentage points since May 2022. Mr. Watcher believes that the RBA doesn't need to raise the cash rate further because consumers, particularly mortgage owners, have not yet felt the full effect of the fastest monetary tightening in a generation. And that is before the commonly called mortgage cliff, where an estimated $500 billion worth of fixed-rate mortgages will expire by Easter and switch to a more expensive variable loan structure. This deal will another blow to households' finances, and the reason why Morningstar believes the RBA could be the first among many of its peers to kick off an easing cycle. I'm sure the RBA would like to keep rates higher for longer, but it just can't put significant pressure on the economy here. So they're admitting that there's a level of defeat here, right? I don't buy into these articles. I just find them for entertainment purposes, and that is what it is. Here's some chickie that is in the news. Woman's rent increases $12,000 overnight. There's always an opportunity. It depends on what side of the page you're on, right? Interest rates go up, rents go up. When interest rates come down, you don't see rents come down. So yeah, this guy here, Sydney influencer, has revealed how rent has increased by an eye-watering sum overnight after a shady email was leaked. A Sydney influencer has revealed how rent eye-watering overnight. This chick was commenting on an internal email which surfaced online last week, which to be the country's biggest apartment developer instructed employees to take advantage of the current market to squeeze renters. Have you got a good property manager working on your front? If not, reach out to my team. We're here to get the highest rents as possible for our investors. No, it's not me that they're referring to, but I'm seeing this with all of our rentals out there. We're pushing the rents up. Investors are getting more and more yields from them. Exciting times for a lot of people, not if you're the tenant. As you're aware, the market's on fire, extremely low vacancy rates. So please ensure you're pushing your rents hard as possible. Read the email, which was shared to Facebook and Reddit. Students are arriving, and we will soon see record numbers this year. For hot family units, please ensure you push above targets, especially if you have nothing available and doing 6-month leases. For landlord units, I recommend starting with 6-month leases. This gives the opportunity to increase the rent sooner in a rising market. Please also ensure that you're doing rent reviews now while the market is hot. This TikTok person described the scandal as absolutely cooked. Well, it's just the market, right? It is just the market. And it revealed that she had been affected with the rent set to increase from $670 per week to $900 per week. That's a fair rental increase, which is good for an owner. Basically, this shady email was leaked from the Meriton bosses in the head office to let all their landlords know that they need to be pushing up their rents as hard as possible and signing 6-month leases that they increase more often. I currently live in Meriton, and our rent went up yesterday by 35%. That's $230 per week and almost $12,000 a year. I met someone yesterday in the Meriton next to us who said that they've been pushed out because their rent is going up by $1,000 a week, and they are getting students in 3 to a room. Make sure you're getting your rent increases in place. This next article here is just basically talking about what I was talking about beforehand with the US debt increasing. The US runs up against its debt limit, so Treasury starts using extraordinary measures. Here's what that means. So let's go into looking what it means that they're doing extraordinary measures. Treasury's Janet Yellen has told top US lawmakers in a January 19 letter that her department began using the extraordinary measures due to the federal government approaching its ceiling for borrowing, after indicating a few days earlier that such a move was coming. Democrats and Republicans looking to set for a possible market shakedown over lifting the US debt limit, with the real trouble probably coming in the summer, so the end of the financial year, which I didn't even calculate this into my figures of my prediction, saying that we would see the trouble happening at the end of financial year this year. Ahead of potential fireworks in Washington and Wall Street, here are some key questions about the US debt limit and the answers to them. This is what Bloomberg has to say. So, what is the US debt limit? Why do we have it? Congress, for more than a century, used to authorize each sale of Treasury bonds to pay for specific projects, but US lawmakers gave the Treasury Department more flexibility on the country's debt in 1917, funny enough, 4 years after the Federal Reserve was created, as officials faced the onset of World War I and a federal government that was growing in size. Then, just before World War II, Congress gave the Treasury almost unlimited power to decide what securities to sell and how to best manage the nation's debt, subject to an overall limit. Ever since then, Washington has produced battles over raising the limit to federal borrowing to pay for the spending already approved by Congress and presidential administrations with both Republican blah blah. A New York Times editorial in the 1980s complained the fight to raise a debt ceiling is a periodic ritual on the Capitol Hill, whatever. Good luck to them. What are the key dates and what has the tax season got to do with it? The day the Treasury can't meet all its obligations and defaults is called the X date. Analysts have been predicted that it could come in July or August, so Yellen delivered a bit of a surprise with a focus on early June. So it's coming further and further and further forward. In any case, there are some expectations that negotiations over the debt limit won't begin in earnest until after President Joe Biden delivers the State of the Union speech on February 7, which is tomorrow, actually. There is also chatter that talks might not ramp up until after mid-April, when tax season hits its peak with income tax filing day. The Treasury may be able to extend the X date if government takes a more tax revenue than expected in April. What happens when the US runs up against its debt ceiling? When the federal government reaches that ceiling, it can't increase its outstanding debt and can only draw from cash on hand. Spending incoming revenues and take those so-called extraordinary measures, according to the White House economist. When the US Treasury exhausts its cash and extraordinary measures, the federal government loses any means to pay its bills and fund its operations beyond its incoming revenues, which only cover part of what is required. So if you think about it, we saw there beforehand the chart of the, I've thrown it away somewhere, where the US interest bill is 850 or whatever it was $billion per year in interest. They have to keep continuously taking out their debt. So if we fast forward 10 years, well, then the interest bill alone is going to be another $10 trillion, which that's without them spending another dollar in the next decade. So this is very quickly going to run up and head us into the hyperinflation. So my thoughts is after we see this next cycle, they've tried to tighten it, they've tried to be able to show that they're doing something. We will see the hyperinflation on the other side of this. So I'm excited by it. This one's funny. It's a bit off topic, right? It's this thing called Davos, right? Davos, which is where all the bad, evil people, a lot of people think that they're good people out there, they're doing good things, whatever, they're not. But they meet and they talk about all the agendas. So green energy, you've got your Greta, that mentally derived child that goes out there and, says her piece, which is funny because there's articles out there with the Greta chick being asked about what she thinks about emissions from Saudi Arabia and forget what the other one was, and she just had a meltdown. It was like her controllers couldn't control her, and had a little meltdown. But anyway, all these evil people meet, and it just is really interesting, right, that the Switzerland deployed 5,000 troops to provide security. Where's 5,000 troops? Like, where do these troops come from? Who's paying for these troops? What? Why? If you had a meeting of, all the politicians and stuff come to a room, why would you need 5,000 troops to protect them, right? And that's because there's a lot of anger out there against these people. It says here, the federal parliament has set a ceiling of 5,000 troops will serve to support the WEF, which will run from January 10th to the 26th. Some of them will be stationed directly in Davos, where the annual meeting will be held on January 16 to 20. So they've got the World Economic Forum meeting there, and Switzerland put up 5,000 military personnel to protect these evil elite people. I just found it very odd behavior. What have we got here? I've got some articles here. Here we go. I pulled this data off Twitter. I got this off Twitter. So just some charts here going through. So our first chart here is the basically the GDP, unemployment. Look here. Every time we've got a grey line, it is a recession. Just remember that those grey lines on these charts mean recessions. In 2020, we had just 1 month that was very bad, and they just printed on and printed their way through this. They have stopped printing. If you look here, you've got QE1, QE2, QE3, QE4, and they've survived it. But here, now we've got a bit of flashing red. We're not as bad as the GFC. We're almost as bad as the year 2000 and the Y2K bug. But this time, they haven't declared a recession. But you can see where we're heading here. This one here, the debts are up, the savings are down, but they keep saying the consumer index is strong. Look at this for a chart. Just is what it is. Which one here? I'll leave that one there. Next one. A lot of people have asked me, because you see all these evil people get together. They talk about, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy, you'll eat the bugs, you've seen these things out there. You know, you don't want to eat meat, you want to eat fake meat, etc. The funny thing is these chickens, even my chickens, when I've fed them pellets, if you feed them pellets, the pellets are being poisoned. It's something very odd out there that they're not laying eggs. It's summer. You should be getting an egg a day from a chicken. If you've got 10 chickens, you should get 10 eggs. But when you have no eggs for weeks and weeks, you've got to question yourself, is something being engineered here? Why is there a shortage of these things? And suddenly they've got, you know, synthetic eggs that are coming out, which are made up eggs, basically. Anyway, I've got these things here called the 20-minute neighbourhoods. It sounds fun. What's a 20-minute neighbourhood? This is an initiative from our communist friends down in Melbourne. I love everyone from Melbourne, but just, you know, even if you live in Melbourne, you've got to admit that it's commie there. It's commie everywhere, but anyway. What is a 20-minute neighbourhood? Plan Melbourne 2017 to 2050. It's pretty funny that they've planned this from, you know, 2017. The Victorian government's long-term planning strategy, guided by the way the city will grow and change to 2050, Plan Melbourne is supported by the principle of a 20-minute neighbourhood. The 20-minute neighbourhood is about living locally, which allows people to meet for most of their daily needs within a 20-minute return walk from home and access to safe cycling and local transport options. These connected to the walkable places are where people can live, work, play, buy their bread, buy their milk, work from home, and a local business. So basically, they're trying to keep everybody into these little smart cities, which is where they control and all that. I find it very concerning. I posted this into Birchy the other day, and when I went through this, this was really, really, really concerning. I'll just share this. This is an article that I put in. This is from the Melbourne government, you know, .gov.au, you know, authorised sort of thing. Hallmarks of a 20-minute neighbourhood. To establish the features of a 20-minute neighbourhood as policy, the state government developed a criteria to demonstrate hallmarks of a 20-minute neighbourhood. I find that I've seen a lot of developers are now going into land lease holds. So the new estates that are being built are going on a land lease model to try and get people, so they own the land. You buy a 99-year lease over the land and you put your house on there, a bit like a retirement village. They're also spending a lot to not go outwards, but more so to build up, which is putting a lot of people into unit type situations because it's easy to build, more control. You've got people controlled. You can lock them in their houses. You can see what's happening out there in China. They're locking people in their house, all these sorts of things. But I find this very concerning here is that on their main page talking about a 20-minute neighbourhood, it says in 2018, the Heart Foundation and the Victorian government worked together to identify the 20-minute neighbourhood hallmarks. So why is the Heart Foundation, as well as the government, as well as these planning bodies and lobbyist groups, you know, what is their interest in it? Like, why is this got to do with the Heart Foundation? Right? What's the Heart Foundation doing in building cities? Yeah, they just pull their friends over and get some credibility. You guys put out some press about this. We'll send it over here and create some more propaganda. Last article for today, before I start going to some of your questions and comments and that, it's just another article. This one is from today or yesterday. This is from today. It says Monday, February the 6th, but it's Monday in America, Tuesday here. The CEO of America's second largest bank is preparing for possible US debt default. Right? US debt default. Congress has once again been bickering about the raising of debt ceiling, the amount of money the US government can borrow to pay its bills on time, and that means that corporate America has to be ready for the worst. Bank of America, second largest bank, told CNN hopes lawmakers resolve their issues because the market and economy love stability, yet defaulting on the country's debt remains a possibility that it cannot be ignored. We have to be prepared for that, not only in this country, but in other countries around the world. Bank of America CEO Brian Moylan told Poppy Harlow on CNN this morning, you hope it doesn't happen, but hope is not a strategy, so you can only prepare for it. So yeah, if the US defaults on its debt, right? You would never have thought that would be reading out articles talking about the US debt defaulting, the US government defaulting on its debt. But this is not located to the US, it's located to every country around the world. The US dollar is the base currency for all currencies around the world. And yeah, it's just uh, an interesting time to be alive. So when people ask, Birchy, do you think that interest rates are going to go higher? I don't care. When I invest in the property, I'm not buying it for 6 months. I'm not buying it for 12 months. I'm building intergenerational wealth. I'm building wealth that can support not just my lifestyle, my lifetime, kids, grandkids, great grandkids, all that. So, I'm not looking at what happens to interest rates this month. It's building strategies. It's learning how to minimize that risk. It's building a portfolio and a lifestyle that can sustain these sort of markets. So, if you need help on that stuff, you can always reach out to us. But that's what we're here for. So I'm going to go to questions. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask me, it's been a good 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I haven't been doing my hair. I am going to shave my head soon, but I need to lose a bit of weight. So I'm not actually going to do anything with my hair until I hit some goals. So after this Facebook, I'm going to go for a 2-hour jog. What else? What questions we got here? Got some colour over the break. Yeah, thanks. All the walking. Andrea, we missed you. I missed you too, Andrea. Pat, hope you're doing well, mate. I will see you shortly. Julianne, hi Nathan. Hope you had a good break, but so glad you're back. Thank you. Appreciate the love from everyone. Joel, good to hear from you. Thank you. Daisy, looks like more interest rate hikes to come. How do you all afford it? Well, just like the lady that said that her rent has gone up by $12,000 a year. You need to plan for it. You need to have strategy around it. You need to I've always said about building a portfolio is like building a business, and you need to have the same sort of principles, same sort of fundamentals. You need to manage your cash flow. I think that there might be some people in trouble out there in the markets, and when I say that there might be some people in trouble out there, I think that people have bought assets on hopes and thoughts and principles that numbers do certain things, but they don't do those sort of things. So some people might be in stress out there. I do see a greater level of people feeling stressed out there, job losses, cutbacks in expenditure for businesses and stuff like that. It doesn't sit well with a lot of people. But these are the opportunities, right? When you see a recession, I've called a recession since the minute that they started raising rates because they're sucking liquidity out of the market. It's inevitably going to fall somewhere. It's not a recession; it's depression. This has been going on for many, many years. They're steering the ship this way, steering the ship that way. People are going to get whiplash on this journey. But that's where opportunity lays is in the fear. Opportunity is in the inconsistencies in the market, and they say that a lot of successful businesses become successful during recessionary periods, and I'm all for that. I was able to quit my job in the middle of the GFC, similar sort of things happening out there. It wasn't when I actually quit my job. Here's a funny story. My portfolio, I had about 20 properties, and they were negative. My portfolio was negative about $45,000 a year, and I knew that I had to go and build a portfolio. Without the portfolio, I couldn't do anything, right? So I pushed and pushed and pushed. And I thought at the time, 40 grand a year. They were all Sydney properties at the time, and mostly Sydney properties. And I thought to myself, I'm buying lots of properties in Sydney. Yes, they're slightly negative cash flows after all expenses, but 5 grand here, 2 grand there, some a little bit positive, some a bit more negative. Holding that portfolio, the day that interest rates dropped by 3%, so in 2009, the RBA dropped 3 consecutive months, 1%, 1%, 1%, came down 3% in 3 months, and it actually came down, and next month it came down 25 basis points, and it came down another 100 basis points. So within a period of 5 months, the interest rates went down by 4.25%. Because of the amount of debt that I had, my portfolio went from negative 40 grand a year to positive like 30 grand a year. And then when I added on their interest rent increases across 20 properties, then that's where my cash flow really started taking a hit from, because I was like, the interest rates have come down, so my expenses have gone down, my rent stayed here, but the rent started increasing 2010, 2011, 2012. And that was when I was able to quit my job, because of the stars aligning. But if I not have taken those hard decisions when the news was bad or things were not as comfortable, I wouldn't have been in a position to have those assets. I wouldn't have had the hook in the ocean ready to catch the fish, at that point in time. So Mark says the money printer go. Brrr. Yep, exactly. Gemma, how are you going? Good to see you this afternoon in the office. I feel like I've missed you because you were gone before Christmas holidays, Gemma, but it's good to see you back. Um, Dave said that chart where the retail sales tanked was over the December, which is supposed to be the highest month for retail spending. Exactly. They don't say it on the news like that now, do they? Um, the consistent responses from the experts as why we won't see a recession is that why we have almost full unemployment. Exactly. When we look at the unemployment figures, they are statistics that are manipulated. It's just the same as the CPI. When they say inflation is only 7.5% or whatever, they're calculating sausages now. They used to calculate meat, and now they calculate sausages. Meat will steak, not sausage. Soon it'll be a meat supplement. Will be meat. Um, when you look at housing used to be the cost of a mortgage in CPI. Now, housing is a rental figure. Right? It's just crazy, but they just manipulate these stats over and over again. Uh, Scott said here, because everyone has 2 to 3 jobs, we've got no unemployment. It's pretty funny. And Mally said, what are your thoughts on the fact that they are moving away from actual cash to digital? Do you think the NWO will hold a completely different effect on previous recessions? Sorry, just got some sparkling water before I came online. So it's a bit different drinking out of a bottle than a cup, as I normally do. Um, the uh, the cash removal. If you go and just look at ATMs, there's less and less ATMs in any shopping center you go to. Banks are closing. Now I'm seeing a sign, like where I was staying at my holiday house. I was there going to the shops and walking there and back and whatnot. There's a Westpac and a St George. They've actually closed the Westpac and the St George and put a branch, and it has Westpac and it has like a slash and it has the St George logo. So you go in for either of the two banks and only have the one set of staff there because it's an old person's town. And they've closed down 3 of the banks to merge it into this one bank, which is merged between the 2 banks. So it's crazy. You can't get cash anywhere, so it's very hard to do so, which I think is just a lot of people are going to be hurt out of this. And the next person actually just said here, Reggie said, Nathan, will the UBIs put pressure on the medical system? Um, when we look at things that will be on the other side, like we're talking about problems that will be from this economic calamity that we're in, right? The ways to get out of it. What things could we expect to see? We're going to see removal of cash, but they're going to see things like universal basic income, which will be tied to a social credit system. So everyone might get $300 per week, right? 15 grand a year. Could be some allowance, some grant. They've tried it, right? Like people literally sitting there, push a button on their phone, 10 minutes later their bank gives them some money. It's the government to put some money directly in their bank account. It's a little grant. It's a flood relief. It's a corona relief. I've been sick with corona, here's $750, whatever the case may be. There's going to be terms and conditions around those things. You better use it within 24 hours. You better use it within this week. You've bought too many cigarettes this week, it's affected your carbon footprint. You've bought alcohol, which is not prohibited, so it's gonna hurt against your system. Your carbon footprint and your green social credit system. You've spent too much on electricity in your house. Your bill is too high. You can't drive your electronic car outside of a 5-20 kilometre radius, whatever it may be. So I think that it's very different this time that we're going through this market. I think at the moment it's okay, but I think the following cycles, once we see the hyperinflation, will wipe out the currency. I don't know what we're going to be working with. So, yeah, I can. There'll probably be a point where I can talk to. There'll probably be a point after that. Who knows? Who knows? Lydia said here, hey guys, a bit late, but nice to see the lives again. Good to see you, Lydia. Hope you're doing well. Kira said there isn't enough pain yet in the economy. Interest rates will go up a lot further. I think there's a lot more pain than people realise, but they're just not seeing it in their day-to-day activity. The pain is out there in the business world. We've got the US, right? If you can't say that there's not enough pain, if we look at Australia, probably 30 to 40% of Australians are getting paid directly from the government, whether it be for some sort of welfare or whether they're working for the government, right? 40% of the country. If the country defaults on its debt, that means that the country is bankrupt, right? The US is bankrupt. They need to take out loans constantly. It's a bankrupted country anyway, but they're taking out loans to pay their government employees. That's very painful. It doesn't happen without the fall of a civilization, and I don't think it's fathomable at this point, but the fall of any civilization has always occurred like this. So it's just interesting. Sarko said, good to see you back, dude. Thanks. Telling people interest rates are going down. Hope you're right. Look, time will tell, common sense will prevail, but it's a very interesting time to be alive, and time will tell, right? But it's mathematically impossible for them to be sustained at this level. Sam says here, wait 3 months and see all the mortgagee auctions. I don't see people going broke in this current market, right? Interest rates, let's say they're 5.5%. There's a very big difference between the market today than what there was in 2008. And I loved the market back in 2008. There was these little white pieces of paper that sit on the front windows of houses, and it says, do not enter, contact this person. It's a disposal company for the mortgage. So if someone goes bank repo on a property, the bank doesn't put the Westpac sign or the NAB sign up the front. They have a process that they follow. They have a disposal company. There's companies out there, and then those companies get a little clip of it, and they appoint an agent. They organise the care of the changing the locks and clean up, rubbish removal, all that sort of stuff, in order to act on behalf of the banks. Back in 2008, interest rate of 8-9% was much higher. So a mortgage of a 50 grand income, which could be 80 grand a year now, wages were lower. A purchase of like 300 grand or something. If you had to rent it, you'd get $250-300 a week rent. There was a big gap between the rent and the cash flow. But in a lot of properties, so if we're looking at $200,000 purchase with a 5% interest, 200,000 purchase, 80% loan, 160 grand loan on a property, 5% interest, 8 grand a year, 52 weeks, about $160 a week in interest repayments. Rent is a lot more than $160 now. So a lot of those properties that people, it's harder for them to go bank repo, and that's why we don't see so many bank repos of recent times, because interest rates are so low. But interesting time to be alive and to see, and I hope that we can see stuff like that, because I'm opportunist, and I see the opportunity there, but I don't see that happening. We've seen very clearly that the central banks have come in, shown their hand. They've made mortgage holidays, made all these special things for people not to be able to go broke. So yeah. Stephen, good to see you, mate. What cool projects are you on over the break? I didn't really do too many cool projects. Someone just wrote here, what are your goals for 2023? I've got lots of goals. Probably my number one goal is to, we've got 2 or 3. There was one day I was watching this random thing, right? It was random. It was on YouTube. It's called the Bucket List Family, and Bucket List Family, some guy, some chick, and they got like two, three kids or something, and they traveled the world, right? The guy's worth like 50 million, 100 million or something. And I was looking at him and I was like, why is this guy so happy, right? He's like doing yoga and shit on the boat. He doesn't own a house, doesn't do whatever. And I was watching it and I was just sitting there half asleep. And I was watching, I was like, I want to be more like this guy. And I thought to myself, I push myself very much, like constantly push myself, whether it's buying all the motels or push myself in business, push myself in my property portfolio, just, keep making cool things happen. Very wealthy on that front. But then I was like, hang on a second, I'm starting to look like a cartoon character. I'm starting to put a lot of weight, and I haven't been looking after myself. So one of my goals for this year is to look after myself as my number one. And I was actually doing some large amounts of walking and going to the gym every day and whatnot. And I was walking one day talking to one of my mates, and we are just talking about just troubles in the world and whatever. And I was like, I feel like the wealthiest bloke alive because I'm taking care of my health. So, for me, this year, just one of my goals is to, get into shape and be fit and, just be on my top from that perspective, which is very different. I always say I'm going to do it, but I don't actually take that time out that I need. So this year, a lot for me, looking after myself, not that I have any problems, just, I just feel like I want to take care of myself more and enjoying all the hard work that I've done over the years. So that's probably more for me at the moment, is more lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. So this is one of them. I've got hundreds of goals which are very much tied to KPIs of my personal portfolio, my personal wealth, and all that. But just the same sort of stuff over and over again that I do every other year. One of my goals is when I get to 99 kilos, so I think I was about 116 kilos. My hands are the size of dinner plates. People think I'm a short ass. When people see me out at the shops or whatever, they're like, Birchy, is that you? You're a fucking giant. I was 6'4". I was about 116, 117 kilos. I've gotten down to 108 kilos this morning, and I want to get to 99 kilos. When I get to 99 kilos, I'm going to shave my head, get rid of my rat's tail. The rat's tail's still growing, pretty good there. A lot of people think it's disgusting. I don't like the rat's tail, but I said when I get to under 100 kilos, I'm going to shave it off. I'm just going to shave on my head, and like Neo in the Matrix, but just something to do. And so I'm pushing myself to look after my health a bit more and my well-being. So that's one of my things. Sam, hey Nathan, good to see you back. If the rates do go negative and if we have low rates again, would you fix your loans for 5 years before the potential hyperinflation kicks in? If it gives you more comfort, yes. I think there'll be a lot of people that will be scared because interest rates went up so quickly. But I'm not scared because I just see the natural, part in the cycle. Would I fix my interest rates again? If they were negative, probably. I'd probably fix them negative. But when you do fix the interest rates, do take note that you don't have the ability to pay off your mortgage. So generally, with most banks, it's about, so if you fix your interest for 5 years, you don't have the right to pay out. Let's say you've got $1 million mortgage, you can't pay that $1 million off. Someone gives you $1 million, you can't pay it off. You can only pay a maximum of $10,000 per year against your mortgage. Now, if we went through a hyperinflation and we had a currency reset, there'd be a point which, if things went too crazy, I'd actually want to pay out my debt. If I had a fixed interest rate, I wouldn't be able to pay out that debt. So it doesn't really sit with me for that. I'm just not in the game of taking bets against the banks because they have a lot more intel, and you're generally going to lose against banks. So, maybe not, not too concerned. Ian, thanks for the knowledge, Nath. Absolute legend. Good to see you, Ian. Hope you are doing well. Ricky, is it a good time to buy an investment right now? There's always opportunities out there. Rents are rising, interest rates still low. Some people are scared. More so than people being scared, what I think is the real opportunity is that people can't service. So where there's issues with people servicing, there's the opportunities because there's less competition against you. So if you were to say, is 2023 or 2022 a better time to be buying than 2020? 100% because there's less competition out there. Areas which were very, very hot going back 2 years ago may not be as hot now. It depends. Each market's different. I know many markets which are hotter than what they were 2 years ago as well. So depends on where, depends on what. There's always going to be an opportunity. There's always going to be things that are good value to buy. It's just a matter of finding those things and taking action when you've got confidence to go, hang on a second, if I buy this property, I'm going to make 50K. If I buy this property, I'm going to make 100K. And if you've got confidence, then do the deal. If you don't, then don't do the deal. Someone here said, "Nah, property's a mugs game." It's, I think there's a bit of tongue in cheek there. Matt said here, "Hey Nathan, great to see you back on Tuesday night. How the health goals going? Looking leaner." Yep, I think I've lost, like 10, definitely 10 kilos of that, but I've put on a lot of muscle as well, which is cool. Julian said, "What are these extraordinary measures that Yellen speaks of?" We talked about that in the beforehand. Basically, they're going to try and fudge government, right? They're trying to fudge legislation to be able to, manipulate how funds are distributed and funds to be coming in. So, would you avoid purchasing a 99-year land lease properties, avoid government control regardless of what type of property you purchase? You're still at the control and mercy of the government. Exactly. I am an investor, right? My company is called B.Invested. It's not called Birchy's Property. It's not called Property This, Property That. There's lots of fad sort of name property companies out there today. I always identified the business as an investment firm when I first started it. I invest into all different things. Would I take a land lease if it's just be like a business? If the numbers stack up, then possibly. But I think there would be better opportunities for me to invest in than into a land lease. So all of my properties that I hold are freehold and they're not leasehold because there's just better opportunities out there. Kane said here, "Great to see you back, Nathan. Looks like you're 100% right on the hyperinflation. How long do you think we have before this hits?" A bit hard to tell. As soon as they print more capital, wait and see what happens to the markets. They've way overshot the amount of tightening, the amount of manipulation out there. These rate hikes that they've done have gone way off course. It's truly amazing. I'd prefer that they put interest rates up by another 5%. If they put up by another 5%, yes, I'd be sore, but there'd be a much bigger opportunity out there. So the more that they go, as I said, the stress point was a 0.5% interest rate increase from the zero cash rate. So 10 basis points to 60 basis points was where it's at. Anything over that, and the further they go over that, the more that they're going to have to unwind this and put more stimulus and more liquidity in the market, and that will cause a bigger boom and expedite the hyperinflation scenario. Sausages are now made with edible collagen casings. Check with your packet. If you look at all your food, there's something everybody should do, right? I was having a discussion with my mother about some food, and I only like food that I can see what is in there. I was actually out with a mate the other day, and we were having some food, and I got sparkling water, and I like sparkling water, and I looked at the back of the pack and it had silica in it, and it's like, silica, like why the fuck is there silica in the water? And he spat it all over the table, right? And then I was in the shops the other day, and I normally make my own taco seasoning to go into tacos, and when I was looking at the taco pack, because I didn't have all the spices that I'd have at home, and noticed on the back of the package all the ingredients that are in there, and the health food store that was local wasn't open to be able to go get the seasonings and putting them together. It actually says that it has silicon in that. So you should really check your food sources, and I think that's one of my goals this year, is to be more off-grid with my eating and whatnot. But I think everybody should be understanding what they're putting into their body, right, through their mouth. You trust the brands that sell you. If you really looked at every product and every part and understood what was inside your food and preservatives and different things, you would not eat 90% of the shit that is sold to us in the shop. So so be conscious. That's one of my my things is to be more on creating my own food. But yeah. Um, Brad says here Newcastle City is becoming a smart city too. You could only imagine, right? You could only imagine how many of them there is that they're building, which is very crazy. I watch all the sky and the geoengineering up that way, and you can't tell me that they're not fabricating more than just the parameters of what we live in. Very, very crazy. Today, chicken kebabs $18. Two AAA batteries $12 at Woolies. Rents are insane. KPI basket getting swapped out. Exactly. Matt says, hey, good to see you. Hope you're well, doing awesome. Andrew said, health is best goal to have. Exactly. It's cool. Brad, nice to meet you the other day. That was pissing down rainfall, like a scene from the Matrix. Good to meet you too. It's the yeah, it was. I'm just looking at all the other comments here. Don't want to buy a Prado, putting the money towards a deposit. Exactly, right? It depends. It depends. Like you might get some cheap cars out there at the moment, but does that bring the cash flow? Does it get you close to your goals? It depends what everybody's goal is and what you're sort of working towards. Matt just said our Queensland properties cash flow just keeps getting better and better. You guys sourced that for us years back, loving it. Thanks again. Remember to hodl. Exactly, Matt. I hope you're doing well. I know your properties still off the top of my head. I still remember the addresses. I still remember the street they're in. Still remember the number. I think 138 would be your number of your where your one is. Maybe 125 for the one that was on the Gold Coast. The street number. I remember where the addresses are at, and I can imagine how great those properties have gone. But remembering 5 years ago, 6 years ago, people saying you're buying in the Gold Coast, it's stupid out there, just in the deals that we're buying, but they didn't see the underlying fundamentals to it. So, yeah. Joseph said you can split your home loans many times and pay 10 grand per annum on each of them until you really wanted to fix and pay extra. Correct. Just depending on what your goals are, and I think it's important everybody understands their goals. Are they looking, if you're going to fix your loan for 5 years, will you be holding that property in 5 years, etc. Michael said, how good is the EVL thing? Yes, the how good's the evil thing? Resignation last week in New Zealand. She'll have a cushy job soon. Such a false piece of, look, the Prime Minister, the bloke, I mean the lady over there, resigning, just very cringeworthy, very cringeworthy. That person, all of them are, but yeah. Matt says here, Nathan, an idea for some lives this year. You've introduced us to your team and their stories. How about getting some of your client success stories? Would be ace to hear from those that have gone before us and living life on their terms now. Matt, you've taken it out of my mind already. We're actually in the process of filming podcasts. So if you're not watching, I have the No BS with Podgy, No BS with Birchy podcast each Tuesday. It's on Apple Play, Google Play, Spotify, and it goes on YouTube as well. But I'll be doing podcasts. I think when doing lives with people, they get nervous, and some of the questions they don't feel comfortable answering and that. So we're going to do podcast style with some of my investors. If you are one of my investors, like Matt just said there about his properties or that, if you're one of my investors, I've bought properties for you, whether it's last year, the year before, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you would like to have a chat, and maybe we can have some sparkling water. I've got a new podcast studio I'm building. That should hopefully be up in the next month or so. I just haven't been back to it to get it finished. So be doing podcasts there, and yeah, running through questions and answers, things that everybody's journey is different. So I will be doing more of those things this year. So keep an eye out on the No BS with Birchy podcast, and on YouTube. You will be seeing more of my investors' journeys. Them just sharing whatever they feel comfortable with, me sitting back asking maybe 2 or 3 questions, and then them talking about all their stuff. So keep an eye out for that. Pete, hey Birchy, just drove home from work, caught up some of them on chat. We'll catch up with tomorrow. Good luck. Glad you're back. Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Good to see you. Rates in New Zealand started to drop. We are at the bottom of the market now here in New Zealand. The Ponzi scheme must continue. Exactly. It is a great Ponzi scheme. Matt said, any thoughts on the impact AI and ChatGPT will have on the property investing and markets, if any? I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, it's too new. I used to be one of my things when I was in school. One when I was in school, sorry, someone just made another comment there, but when I was in school, I actually wanted to be in IT. So I actually got this university degree when I was in year 10 because I was so good into tech, and I actually wanted to be in computers. And looking back now, I'm so glad I didn't do that. I was just excited about computers, but I'm not. I feel like one of those old bastards now that's like, oh, what do you mean by that? How does that work? Whatever, right? Um, so my thoughts on Chat GPT and AI. I've seen a bit of stuff about it. My head's not all around it. I can't dismiss it because I remember laughing at my mate Mitch years ago about Bitcoin when it was $500, and I saw it go to $1,000, and then I put a bit of money into it at $1,000, and that went all the way up to 80, 90 grand. And I didn't understand what it was on the day that I laughed at him. But then 6 months later, I was like, shit, this thing's really cool. And this is what I would have loved to have been able to create, something similar to that. So I don't know. So I'm not going to disregard it. I just don't know. Time will tell. I'm not caught up in hype. I'm not catching on to hype and FOMO on these sort of things. But it's interesting to see what will happen out there. And yeah, time will tell. Latest here in New Zealand is burning of all the chickens. It's funny. There's been all these farms that have been purchased from certain elite people, and then other farms burned down. And now we're seeing it with chicken farms. Now there's so many chicken farms burning down, and we've got an egg shortage. Funny enough, weird, strange. Control your own food source. Have control of your own life. I always say, and our slogan here is live life on your terms. I think it's important to have the ability to do what you want, when you want, how you want, and the ability to take yourself out of the matrix and not be stuck to a job is important. That's what we help people with financially, but being able to have the freedom, flexibility, living holistically, whatever that means for you, is very, very important. So yeah, have food supply is very important. I've been doing it for many years. So Matt, thanks for your time, Nathan, and answering all the questions. Have a great week. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Excited for 2023. Look forward to seeing you guys shortly, and we'll catch up soon. Just the last question that came from from Ben. Why does the RBA symbol look so evil? I thought that myself. I encourage everybody, as a little parting message today, go and look at the rba.gov.au website. Have a look at it. Look down the bottom. It says copyright. It has no Australian coat of arms, no Australian government, no Australian coat of arms, nothing. It's a .gov.au. In the about us section, it says we report to the Australian government and its agencies, which means that if it reports to the Australian government, it's not the Australian government. Otherwise, it'd be talking to itself. And if it was one of the agencies, it wouldn't be reporting to its agencies. Right? Secondly, copyright all over it, and no coat of arms. If you go to health.gov.au, defence.gov.au, ato.gov.au, you will see they have all the fucking emu and the crest of arms, coat of arms there, kangaroo, whatever, standing there. It is very odd. I always question it, and if the devil exists, it looks like what I'd imagine the devil's head would look like. So just my thoughts on the RBA logo. So thanks for asking that question. Bit of a lasting there. So we'll catch up soon. If you need help on anything, reach out to my team. Contact us at the messages. We will never message you out of nowhere and say, hey, need some help, whatever. Be careful of scams out there, people impersonating things, asking for money and stuff like that. So you can reach out to us on the messages here. You can contact the office 1300 367 925. Email us at admin@binvested.com.au. Have a great day. Have a great week. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now. Make sure that 2023 is your best year.